we all enter with a series of goals that we have in mind, right? As it talked about in the earlier chapters, we may have goals that we're striving for. Well, we can surely bet that having a child may be an impediment against those goals. How might having a child be an impediment for a male, for the boy who got the young woman pregnant?
Shotgun wedding.
I would like to say shotgun wedding, as one of our graduate students, Mike, said in the back, but I'm not even sure that happens that much anymore, right? So what might it be? If you're so inclined to care for your child.
Well, some of them, most of
They
the
gotta
young
get a
kids,
job.
Yeah.
some
So-
don't even choose to be involved.
Well, first of all, you do have enough percentages of young men who choose not to be involved at all. But for the ones that do choose to be involved, as Mike says, now suddenly you can't go to college, right? You have to go get a job. You might even have to drop out of high school, right? You're going to have to drop out of high school, which in turn is going to impact a series of life outcomes. And the final important thing to gauge from this, these discussions are as follows, because I don't want to get too much into the specifics. This process begins very early on, at the earliest stages of education, right? In terms of educational attainment. The final piece that's talked about in the book is one having to do with the household context. And we can't skate or skirt the issue of household context, okay? Do I still have time, Kels? Good? And I'm going to give you examples of studies. I believe, I don't know if they cite them in your book, I don't think they do. The scholar's name is LaRue. Something like that. I don't expect you to know her name, his name, that's not the point. I want you to understand the context of what I'm going to present to you. Studies have shown, we know from cognitive research that the mind is very resilient, right? And it's particularly resilient when we're young. The younger we are, the more we can soak into our brains. That's why learning a second language is easier when you're a kid, right? The older you get, it gets that much harder to learn a second language. We have a lot of bilingual students here at UTSA, and I'm sure you remember, if you speak Spanish and you speak English, you probably don't remember having learned it. Como yo. Yo ni me acuerdo cuando aprendí el español, porque yo aprendí español chiquitico, right? Since I learned Spanish as a child, I don't even remember learning it. Well, much of cognitive process is like that. The mind is like a sponge. So studies have shown the following. When kids enter kindergarten, high income, low income, we start here at kindergarten, right? Our cognitive abilities are pretty tied. Right? They're not totally tied. Actually, already by kindergarten, let me tell you, the high income kid is already at a bit of an advantage. Okay? At kindergarten. At kindergarten, and now I know there's a lot of preschool, but a lot of these studies were done before there was even preschool. In kindergarten, a lot of these studies show high-income kids are already at an advantage in terms of verbal skills, reading, mathematics, basic mathematics. Why are they ahead? Nobody's gone to school yet. Why are the high-income kids ahead of the game?
Their parents.
It happened in the home. Okay, whether we like it or not. This is not a matter of targeting poor folk. I was poor. Many of you grew up poor, right? And here we are, right? But it is often, if you have a single parent, you live in more difficult socioeconomic surroundings, parents are working longer hours and may not have the time, may not have a parent at home who is able to do what kind of things? Read to your kid, right? Go on enjoyable trips, right? All these types of things that people with those kind of resources can do. Well, kids enter kindergarten and they go through year one. Year one, and then time 2 is the end of kindergarten. Guess what happens? So the low-income kids might have started down here. By the end of kindergarten, they tend to catch up. They tend to catch up, right? That's how resilient the mind is. The school system seems to be doing its job. 1 year of kindergarten, we tend to catch up, and by the end of kindergarten, we're on the same playing field. What happens here? This is blue. What is this? Kindergarten's done.
First grade.
Not yet. Before.
Summer.
Summer. Right? Summer 1. Now we start first grade. Where are the low-income kids?
Behind again.
they fall behind. The wealthy kids have actually gone up, right?
Same with the summer camp, stuff like that.
Absolutely, right? So we start to ask that question. What the hell happened in this summer? What the hell happened in this one summer that we lost everything we accumulated in kindergarten? What do you think the rich kids are doing over the summer?
Learning stuff.
Yeah.
They're being read to. They're learning to play chess. They're going to the UTSA engineering camp, right? They're going to the UTSA soccer camp, right?
Pro-social activity.
No, I will tell you what. I'll tell you, right? These are distinct things that happen in summers, and all of this is not necessarily negative. I can tell you one thing that the research has showed. Low-income kids, their lives are not as freaking controlled, right? They're playing what researchers have called organic play, right? They're playing in the street. They're playing amongst themselves. They're learning to play without the control of adults all the time, right? That's how I used to play. We used to just run around. We'd leave at 8 in the morning, and we wouldn't come home till the sun went down, right? With no adult supervision, okay? All right, but guess what happens? We start first grade, time 1. So this is first grade. This is first grade. Time 2 is the end. Guess what happens? We catch up again, right? Once again, at the end of first grade, we catch up, right? The poor kids start behind again. The rich kids, by the end of first grade, we catch up. Then we go to summer 2. What happens by the time we start second grade? You get the point. The low-income kids are behind again, right? We start here, et cetera, et cetera. So the point is this. In the United States, after every summer, low-income kids fall behind high-income kids. But by the end of that school year, they tend to catch back up. But then there's this phenomenon that happens somewhere between, we're not quite sure, data's different where you look at it, but somewhere between 3rd and 5th grade, that same phenomenon happens, where over the summer, low-income kids fall behind. And somewhere along the line, they fall behind again, and they are never able to catch up, right? And we're really unsure why. Some people argue it's because school just starts getting harder, right? School starts getting harder. And secondly, higher income parents start putting more resources into their kids as they start getting older. They start sending them to specialized testing schools. They start getting tutors. Tutoring for the summer is huge, right, in higher income communities, where school teachers, having summers off, get hired, right? School teachers get hired to tutor kids all summer long. Well, you have to have the resources to do that. So there comes a point where low-income kids fall behind. That seems to be some kind of magic bullet at some point where summers negatively impact low-income kids. Final thing I'm going to say is the book talks about some of the possible policy implications of educational inequality. If we know that there's this problem that exists, how could we possibly mitigate this problem?
Oh,
Policy, from a policy standpoint.
it's already happened.
Give it to me.
Shorten
Give it to me,
summer-
Mike. Give it to me, Mike.
Compress school years with shorter summers and just spread out the holidays more across the year so there's shorter breaks in between school.
Michael
I have
says,
my daughter in California, they went to the new school year. Summer was only like 6 weeks long.
Yeah. Michael in the back correctly notes one of the policy implications happening all over the United States. All over the United States, we're starting, especially in big urban centers of the U.S. My best friend lives in St. Louis. This is happening in St. Louis. They're getting rid of the long summer. The long summer off is becoming a thing of the past. They're making the school year be more consistent throughout the year and having short little breaks, sort of like the holiday, Christmas, whatever you want to call it, politically incorrect break.
Like jobs.
And they're happening through the year, where kids get these small breaks to try to mitigate this kind of summer effect. That would be one of the policy implications of thinking about these unequal access that students often have access to. Final point here, who do you think is complaining, making the loudest voices against this type of policy, where we get rid of summers?
The high income
What's that?
teachers.
Ah, that's, you know what?
I know my
Interesting
friends-
point. That's
Some of
interesting.
my friends are teachers, they love their summers.
Yeah, the teachers union, that's, look, I can't speak to that, but I think it's plausible. Maybe they're paying them more. Who might be
I'm
The
gonna
high
say-
income.
the high income parents? There's a lot of kickback, a lot of fight from high income parents who say, hey, wait a minute.
That's when we take our big Bahamas vacations.
Yeah, that's when we take our big Bahama vacation. That's where we go to Europe. That's when we go to Italy, right? That's where we go to the big soccer camps. Why should you penalize me because poor people can't raise their kids, right? Why are you penalizing me? When, if poor people, they shouldn't have had them kids in the first place, right? Don't penalize me. I do what's right all summer long, and we enjoy our summers as a family. So we can see where this public policy also has very important cultural, social implications. Okay? Okay, here's what we're going to do. The next video, we're going to talk about chapter 5 and chapter 6. Because if it all starts with education, and we can see how low-income children are all almost initially at a disadvantage, then at around 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, they never catch up on. The next thing we're going to talk about is how it is, as Reed brought up earlier. What then is the pathway? What takes us from all this educational inequality to then thinking about the inequality of employment and the inequality of what is often called the ecology, the social ecology, in other words, the neighborhood that we are immersed in. So we'll stop this chapter here, and we'll start right back up on the next one. Keep going? Are you sure I'm not going to run out? Well, stop it anyway, because I need to. Sorry. I need to know what the hell I'm going to say. Come on! Hang in there, guys. You're doing me a great service.